Welcome. It's going to be part one in a series that I'm going to affectionately call Let's Learn Chess. And we're going to go over how I teach my students to play chess. And it may be a little bit different than the countless other people who have taught chess, but it has a proven track record, and it is now the curriculum text, the way we teach for Palm Beach Chess as we go into after-school programs in Florida. I'm National Master Bryan Tillis, and I have been a certified teacher since 2014, so solid 6 years classroom experience at this point. And let's dive right in, shall we? Because I believe that there are three modalities of learning, and you are going to fit into one of these categories more so than the other two. So we got auditory, you hear it and you learn it. You're hearing me right now. Visual, you see it and you learn it. But the third category is most important, the doing. The kinesthetic learners, you actually have to do it to learn it. And everything that I do with learning piece movement is all three categories. And we're going to jump right into the content, but it's important for you to understand there's an order and rhyme to reason for the way that I'm teaching this. I'm trying to make sure you have good habits. Most people, when they learn chess, they learn all six pieces, they sit down to play a game, and they start making terrible moves immediately. We're gradually going to ratchet up different ideas when learning piece movement in order to teach you the rules as we go, the elements of the game, how to win, and this is a tried and true tested program because my students went from learning piece movements in those years that I've had as an educator so far to two-time Florida State champions, and in multiple age groups we finished top 10 in the national championships. So without further ado, let's jump right into the content, and we've got on lichess.org. And what I'm going to use is free sources for you guys, because I know there's no reason to buy anything expensive to learn chess when you can get the rules pretty much anywhere. So I recommend going to lichess.org, and if you go to the Learn tab, you're going to find where I'm at right here, where if you've never played with pieces before, I think it's an excellent way to learn. Well, we have the Rook, a very powerful piece. It's not a castle, it's a Rook. So let's get started with this. And it's great because in Lichess, when you click the piece, it will show you all the legal squares that the Rook can move to. And it's a great way to warm up with learning piece movement, especially for little ones, the young ones in our classes, where if you notice, it stops on the star and does not jump over. And the Rook moves in this plus sign, as we see, and the objective in learning the six pieces is going to be to capture all of the stars, just to show one by one the way that the pieces move. And I think this is an absolutely excellent way to get started. And much like with Angry Birds, you got to get the 3 stars. You're not satisfied until you get 3 stars in all the activities. So it's showing again. I can move in the plus sign, so I can take here and then take here. And there is some elements of strategy here where we're having to think, okay, if I capture here first and then go back, I'm going to leave out capturing that pawn or star. So let's go ahead and go this way. Now, looks like I need to capture this one first because I have this pattern. And what I would recommend doing from this point is when I reach a new position, you pause and you see if you can't figure it out as we're going along. And I'm just going to continue on. Here I see that I can laterally capture these two and vertically capture those two. So it may look complicated, but when you break it down into pieces, you think which Rook is going to handle which job. So I'll first start with this one. And it looks like he's just going to simply handle 1, 2, and no other stars are connected to the Rook. Now it seems that this Rook is going to be the one to handle the rest. So I'm going to capture. capture. If I go here, I'm going to run into a dead end. So I need to grab the outsider first. And we got that stage 1 complete. We got the high score with the 3 stars. And I really like this for the little ones because if I'm teaching, say, a 3 to 5-year-old chess, and I'm showing them the movements on a board, and the first thing that most of them do, they believe, is toys. And, we turn it into a rocket ship. The bishop's a rocket ship. Well, it's hard, and we keep telling them no, and they don't like that word. I don't like that word. This is something that's going to teach them step by step. It's non-invasive. It's non-threatening. And with the little ones especially, it could take weeks to teach them in a standard curriculum just piece movement. The older you are, the faster you're going to pick up this stuff. But different ways of learning is going to be very helpful for those young students. So let's continue on here. Next, we have the bishop. And the bishop is the chess piece with the scar, and he moves in long diagonals, only in the letter X. So we can capture here and here. So now that we know that the bishop moves in a letter X. I'll often catch my students at the beginning of the year. I'll see 2 bishops on the board on the same color, and that never happens. A bishop is always going to stay on his own color. Well, never is a bit of an exception, where a pawn, if it makes it to the other side of the board, can become another piece, and we'll cover that soon. So you could technically have 2 bishops of the same color, but it's extremely rare. So here I'm going to go with this pattern of taking in a way to where I'm doing it in one fluid motion. So here, as we see, we have a dark square bishop, and it looks like I'm going to be taking here last. So I'm going to capture, grab this guy, and we have our pattern. So it seems that this one needs to be captured last because it's out in no man's land over here. So I'm going to take here, and we've got the bishop. I really like these puzzles. So we got the zigzag pattern here. Dot, 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 dot. Next up, don't get overwhelmed. Handle one piece at a time. Let's start with the dark square bishop. So I see the stars on the dark squares, and I know I'm taking that one last, and I'm seeing this pattern. And a great warm-up activity in a classroom for students, and I do it as their bell ringer in middle school each day. I'll have a piece and have multiple pawns, which in this case we're using the stars, and they tell me how many moves it takes and the minimal amount for them to capture all the stars. So that's an everyday thing in my classroom, and I strongly recommend it. Now we're getting to the queen. And we learned the rook. He moves in the plus sign, long vertical and horizontal movement. We got the bishop. He moves in diagonals, or the letter X. Now the queen is a combination of those 2 pieces. She can move long verticals, horizontals, and diagonals. So it's a combination of the powers of the rook and bishop. So she is the most powerful piece in chess. And here, you want to pause and see if you can't figure out a way to take all of them in one fluid moment. All right. And there we go. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I see this one, and I feel like I should start here. And then I'm going to go here, here, here. And there were a couple different ways to do it at the end there. So this is one that my students typically get tripped up on. You want to take an all one fluid motion. And I think that psychologically we make the mistake here of capturing this first because it's closest. But it's a stutter step. And we end up getting our 3 stars. So lastly, let's get all of the stars. for the lady. Nailed it. So far we've got the rook, the bishop, and the queen. Now the most important piece in chess, the king. And we'll go over in the next video the concept of check and checkmate and how to win in chess. But in the meantime, let's talk about how the king moves. And he can go one square in any direction. Notice with the previous pieces, when I'm talking about their movement, that's the way they attack. And in chess, we can never put our king where he is being attacked. Okay? We'll elaborate on that in the next video, but he moves one at a time in any direction. So here, I can go one at a time and clip all these stars. And then lastly, since it's separated, it looks like my king's going to go for a little walk in order to grab these remaining three. Next up, we've got the knight. And the knight is the hardest chess piece to learn because he moves in an L shape. And you have to think about the L not just in our standard L, but geometrically. So we can turn the L to where it's going to be a 1, 3 L. And it does not stop. So say if there was a star here, I could not capture that star with a knight. The knight, you have to see it as jumping from point A to point B. So let's see our L's. We can go to any of these squares. And a knight in the center of the board is an octopus as it's touching 8 squares. And let's see all of our L's. Okay, we got one there. We got the sideways L there. So hopefully you're starting to see how the L's work. We got an L there, etc. So let's go ahead and grab that one since it's in our L, and we'll grab that one since it's in the L. Okay, so knight's a zigzagger. So let's grab, 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 grab. Okay. So you want to capture in a way to where you're always taking. And I only see one path here where we are grabbing all of them in one motion, and that's it. So here our first movement is not going to be a grab, but after that, every movement is going to be a grab. And we do that nice little box movement. And I see this pattern. And the more you do these types of things, the better you get at it. And this one starts from here. There we go. And that's the last of the knight moving in the letter L. And we've covered 5 of the 6 pieces. Now let's go to the pawn. And again, I'm going to have it down in the link for you so you can practice this yourself, because I think if you're learning, it's so important to be doing. And it's fine to have a cheat sheet out. I have a cheat sheet out for my students to where it has a pictorial representation of all the pieces, how they move, with some light instructions underneath. And the first time you're playing pretty much any game like this, you need the instructions. Because what we need to answer is, how do we win? You win by doing a lot of things right. And knowing the rules is probably the most important starting point. So here we have the pawn. And pawns, they can only go forward unless they're capturing, in which case it's going to be 1 square diagonally. So between the pawns and the knights, we have an interesting time learning. And what we have here is pawns can never go backwards. They're the only piece that cannot go backwards. And knights, they're the only piece that can jump over others. So with the pawn, he's going to go forward, and lo and behold, when he makes it to the other side of the board, we have what's called promotion, where he can become a queen, rook, knight, or bishop. And in this case, like many cases, we typically want to choose the queen, as it is the most powerful piece in chess. So as I choose the queen, now I can come back and grab this pawn. So here, it seems like we're going to have to promote our pawn, but before I promote it, I have to ask, what piece would be good here to capture all of the stars in the fastest manner. Queen, rook, knight, or bishop. Okay? Knight. And we grab everything. Okay, next up, remember pawns move forward 1 square unless they're on their origin square. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And otherwise, they move 1 square diagonally. So here I can capture, and it looks like I should go here. And this time, a queen or a rook will do. That's all we need to do is move in verticals and horizontals to capture the remaining pieces. So it's a good point here. Like I said, pawns only capture 1 square diagonally. So if we captured there, we have a dead end because we'll have a star in the way, and you can't move forward to capture with a pawn. Only 1 square diagonally. And here we'll go with the queen and grab. Next up, looks like pawns capture 1 square diagonally again, so let's start with this one. Look like I can move up and take this one. And take, push and take. There we go. And lastly, when setting up a standard chess position, we'll have pawns all the way across the 2nd rank and the 7th rank. And the very first time you touch a pawn in a game, it has the option to move 1 space or 2 spaces forward. And in this case, after that, only 1 at a time. So here we have a little bit of takes, and it looks like I can go take, go 2 and take, go 2 and take, go 2 and take. And we have the pawns, and we have completed going through basic piece movement. And that supplement that you want to have, you want to read the rules yourself and then sit down and do this activity. And go to this next video where we're going to work on strategy with how to win the game and checkmate. Checkmate is a very, very important concept that you must learn in order to be a good chess player.